Lace them up and lace them tight. The Virginia gang, we're going to extend our time. Mike Leahy on vacation, so we got a little we got a bonus hour here. We'll stay as long as we want. Very lively, salty show today, starting on January 2nd. I want to thank all of our listeners for being with us. And this marks Saxman and Joe and John Reed with us on the Virginia Gang. This marks my 15th year, started my 15th year in radio. We started on January 2nd, 2012 on WHKT, the old WHKT, AM 1650 in Norfolk, which we now own and changed it to WJFV. Came available and bought it immediately because of it was our legacy station where we started. She didn't want to go to anybody else. So we're there. Hope you're tuning us in there. And we've just put a new transmitter in. Should sound fantastic as we expanded. So we basically went from one little show, Buying the Time, to the largest independently owned and operated conservative news talk network in the country. And tribute to my wife, Ann, our CEO, who built this company from nothing with $200 on my mother's kitchen table with no money and homeless. And basically with a broken down host that was an alcoholic that she had to basically scrape off out of the gutter in order to bring him back to life, which is me. Why I'm so happy every day because I'm living on borrowed time. Hadn't be for Ann, I'd be dead. So every day I get up, it's borrowed time. I shouldn't be here. So it's a great day in America. And we got to keep fighting and doing what we got to do. The Virginia Gang is back. John Reed is with us. Also, Joe Morrissey, Chris Saxman. And Chris got me fired up over the weekend. He was all fired up. So he kind of got me a little salty. So that's how our show has been today. It's going to be that way the whole time. We're going to start calling out the nonsense because in 26, we got to get this done. We got to get it done right. And we don't have time for infighting and nonsense and all the other backbiting going on. Now, we got a debate coming up for the Republican Party chair of Virginia. That's going to be on Thursday, July 15th, which is a week after next, July 15th, 8 to 10 a.m. across our network. It'll be on TV and radio. That'll be at the office, at our studio in Richmond. It's not open for the audience. We don't have the seating for that. It's just going to be our two moderators, John Reed and David Botkins, who is a member of the SEC. We all know John Reed. And I'm going to be basically keeping the time and keeping the order. And that's my role. I've got a lot of criticism over this. People saying that it's biased. I guess John Reed is biased. I guess David Botkins is biased. I'm not running the debate. So I guess I'm biased, but I'm keeping the time. That's my role. It's unbelievable. What's the saying, Saxman? No good deed goes unpunished, right? I'm trying to bring this to everybody, and the criticism I've come under for having this is unbelievable because they prefer to have it in some back room, I guess, with 80 people and not the general public knowing about what is going on. It's unbelievable, the criticism I've come under for this thing. But I want to thank all the candidates for agreeing to do it. I want to thank David Botkins and John Reed for being the moderators. Rules will be published soon, and that'll be transparent as well. And we'll all be in the office, and Joe can sit in watching too. It's going to be fun. So having said that, one of our candidates joining us now, Cameron Hamilton. Cameron served in the Trump administration, ran for Congress in 2024, and was defeated in that primary in a very contested race in the 7th district, now held on by Vindman. And that's not going anywhere. He's going to be there forever. They keep changing the rules there. But Cameron, thanks for joining us. You're with the Virginia Gang. And let's just start out. You got a couple of minutes here to kind of tell us why you're running for chairman and open yourself up to questions by the gang.
Yeah, good morning, John. Well, first off, congratulations to you for 15 years on the news and the radio. It's quite an accomplishment, my friend. With regards to myself, so I'm a recovering Trump administration official. I'm currently working in private business and industry. I'm sick and tired of the brokenness of the Republican Party of Virginia. The Republican Party really has three functions: money, messaging, and organization. And I think that we've really been delinquent in all of those. So my wife was recently elected to be a delegate for Virginia's 62nd district. She's replacing Nick Freitas in the House of Delegates. We put our skin in the game, and we're going to be serving Virginians as best we can. I'm sick and tired of us not having a chairman and leadership with an operational focus and mindset. So that's what I bring. I've built and led teams I've distinguished myself through my career in the SEAL teams, as well as at the Department of Homeland Security, at FEMA, managing 25,000 employees and $90 billion of working capital. We need to build a team of teams. And as you had said before, the time for the infighting is over. We need to operationalize the RPV in a way to actually win elections, period, full stop. That is the singular focus. So one of my main proposals to the RPV, of which it's a vote for the state central committee, is to bring in an executive leadership team of between 20 and 30 professionals to help us with anywhere between 10 and 15 different working groups to help advance the Republican message and really push the Republican creed to be relevant. My main concern is what we saw in New York and many other areas. The Republican creed is beautiful, but it's not relevant for people today. We need to engage in a systematic wide rebranding of the Republican Party, rebranding of the Republican movement so that people understand the implications of conservative governance, because I'm sick and tired of getting our asses handed to us, pardon my language, time and time again. John was a fighter. He ran an incredible campaign. It was an incredibly bifurcated message. The RPV could have stepped in to really coalesce, in my opinion, the top ticket. We saw the things that he dealt with all the infighting. Again, the worst thing for Republicans are when Republicans infight and hamstring and attack one another. So I'm saying this is an extreme conservative. I'm saying this is a man who was endorsed by members of the Freedom Caucus. I'm sick and tired of the status quo because it's not working and we keep losing time and time again. In fact, we're making more losses now than we ever have before.
I'm
The only paradigm
gonna open
shift
this up for
is Trump.
questions, guys. Go ahead,
Yep.
fire away at Cameron.
Cameron, good morning. Joe Morrissey here.
Morning, Joe.
A strong, independent voice. Let me ask you this. I like what you say about the executive leadership team, and I like your credentials having been in leadership positions. Could you have made a difference in the 2025 statewide elections? And if so, what would you have done differently to perhaps put the Republicans in a position to win?
So I think I could have. And the example of that is when you look at the Family Foundation, I'm not here to say that they're a perfect organization. They've got key talking points on 4 different amendments that they're reviewing, and they've got consistent messaging that they push out to their viewership. There's a coalescence behind what their actual driving points are and what their talking points are. We didn't see that with the RPV. We didn't see consistent and regular narratives that people were able to recognize and to appreciate and to drive forward. There's a variety of different amendments and also different legislative outcomes that we were expecting. The RPV should have been leading the fight to coalesce, bring committees together, and actually strengthen the Republican ticket. Instead, over the years of emaciation, as many of you have kind of recognized, the RPV has maintained a backseat role and really let premier candidates kind of dictate and lead that conversation. That is a foundational problem. The Jason Miyares team finally got so frustrated that they wanted to weaponize an operational ground game, and they actually deployed people with resources and capabilities everywhere. John Reed was all over the state, messaging and targeting voters, trying to engage to coalesce this team of teams approach. The top of the ticket had some strengths, but also some humongous disadvantages. There were failures of the Winsome Sears campaign. I think we have to look at this and recognize that the RPV was the central interconnected node to put all those pieces together. And if I were to grade them on this last cycle, I'd give them an F. I mean, we took a 30-year setback. It will probably take us every bit of 15 to 20 years to overcome the challenges of what we're going to likely see just from 2 years of what will be democratically led legislature and also the executive branch of Virginia. So I think we could do that. I think with an operational mindset, driving in the right leadership team, and specifically targeting key areas to move the needle to show voters that Virginia Republicans should remain relevant for the future, I think we'll have a chance to. But there wasn't leadership, in my humble opinion. Mark Peake is a wonderful man. I think that he did the honorable thing by stepping aside because I don't think he's able to commit the time and effort necessary to help drive change. But my wife running her race, we had little to no coordination with the RPV. We had little to no coordination with anyone at the state level, with the exception of John Reed and with Jason Miyares' team.
Well, Cameron, there is no RPV. I mean, we keep it's 80 people that run the party. They're all fiefdoms. Everybody does their own thing. They all fight with each other. I went to one of those meetings. I would never go again. It was a total waste of my time.
Yeah, dysfunctional.
Fight. They have no apparatus, no infrastructure, and no money, and there's nobody to raise any money for them. So how are you gonna raise money?
Well, first, we need to set the tone. The chairman can't do this individually. The chairman has to bring in a panel of senior officials that can help, of which I'll make it very clear. John Reed is one of the key people that I think has such a clear voice for this party. He made such a dent, and I would be honored if John would join my leadership team if I was given the honor of becoming chairman. He ran such a remarkable campaign. There's great talent, and the RPV isn't drawing in the talent to help us make inroads. Plus, to be honest, we have an outgoing governor who was excellent at vetoing bills and did a phenomenal job there. However, the Spirit of Virginia advocated for donors not to give to candidates. In fact, the Spirit of Virginia advocated for donors not even to give to the RPV, instead to give to their PAC because they could triage to candidates. You talk about an RPV that was hamstrung. They hamstrung themselves because the top of the ticket at that current time was actively telling people not to invest in building out infrastructure of the RPV. These are foundational problems.
Saxman, that's a pretty bold allegation Hamilton made. What do you think of that? That he's alleging that Glenn Youngkin, the governor, told donors not to give to candidates or to the RPV, to only give to Spirit of Virginia.
He did.
Correction, not the governor, the Spirit of Virginia. I do want to be clarified. The Spirit of Virginia.
Well, he runs Spirit of Virginia, but he runs Spirit of Virginia, dude. I mean, there's
a distinction without a difference.
Yeah, but he's still. I mean, Governor Youngkin ran the PAC. It's his PAC. Saxman, weigh in here.
Well, I mean, that's the decision that Governor Youngkin and his PAC made. Look, it was probably, in their minds, a better utilization of money, that they could distribute the money better than the party or certain candidates, because they will have better information on where to distribute the money. Taking a step back, though, I think it'd be healthy for whoever wins the chairmanship to step back and say, let's do a full scale analysis of what actually happened and come to an agreement on what 100%. They believe in, and do that deep dive. I don't think it's dire. It's very dire, because you're not going to come back too quickly, because you're going to have a massive majority in the House for Democrats who are going to raise a ridiculous amount of money. First and foremost, they have to figure out who they are and what they're going to present to the public, and how they're going to fund it. And that's just where the sauce is made in politics. But they have to be very truthful about what all happened. They have to be very truthful about the top of the ticket and what a terrible campaign she ran, and frankly, what a terrible candidate she was, in Winsome Sears, and just be honest about it. And what they need to do is start vetting candidates much better, much earlier in the cycle. They need to be recruiting, training, and vetting much earlier, because the calendar has changed so much. And that's a function that they can actually do that doesn't require a lot of money.
Chris, I'm so glad you mentioned that. John, those are two specific things that I'm individually calling for. Number one is an actual candidate vetting guide. We have nothing at the state level to effectively and indicate whether or not a candidate even aligns with the Republican core creed. That's a major problem. So I'm developing a candidate guide of between 80 and 90 different questions, so that actual committees can properly vet people for Board of Supervisor races, for senior positions, for House of Delegate races, Senate races, and even at the top of the ticket. Number two, a complete forensic audit is absolutely necessary to go through and analyze what failures were incurred during this last cycle. I have friends that worked in a variety of different campaigns. I have friends that worked for the state party. I have friends that worked also for senior PACs, worked for the speaker, worked for the House Minority Leader, and many others. All the evidence was showing in the leading months that this was going to be a shellacking, and yet it seemed as though certain individuals within senior leadership were not willing to make the appropriate changes necessary. It was either bad or awful. Those were the two indications that I had received. So I agree with you. A complete forensic audit is necessary.
Part of that audit has to be how each campaign spent its money and where that money went to.
Yes.
Because when you do a deep dive into some of the money that was spent, you will be horrified at how ineffective and illegitimate some of those monies were spent.
So, Cam, why did you leave the Trump administration? Were you fired? What happened?
So I was reassigned. I had a run-in with the current Secretary of DHS. I'll put it that way. There was some very different.
Was she your boss?
She was my boss. So I was appointed as the head of the Office of Response and Recovery within FEMA, the largest office there. And then I was stepped up to be the senior official performing the duties of the FEMA administrator. I've been a firm Trump supporter since day one. So it was an honor to serve in that capacity. My boss and I, who was the Secretary of DHS, had some very clear differences of opinion on how certain activities and decisions should be made. Ultimately, I was asked to do things that I felt were unethical and at times unlawful. And so through a recourse, she decided to remove me. I had advocates in the White House who came to my defense, very clearly indicating that this was a mechanics decision. So I was moved to another federal agency and then ultimately left the administration for work in the private sector. So what you'll see in the news is that I was fired publicly. That was the intent because of a disagreement between the secretary and myself. But having said that, I've still maintained firmly that I serve the president and that I diligently serve the president to the best of my abilities. In 3 months, we saved $3 billion from the entire budget of FEMA. We downsized the workforce. We made more inroads at that agency under my leadership than any federal agency in the entire United States government. And still, when it came times for specific decisions about legislative action, where I had a disagreement with my boss over how to go about achieving victory, I was moved aside because I wasn't agreeing with her opinion.
Yeah, but Kim, she was your boss. I mean, if I had a person on my staff right now that was undermining me, I'd fire them too. I mean, you take the position. Right. She's your boss. She's the secretary. She got approved by the Senate, not you. So she's your boss.
I wasn't undermining her, John. I never undermined her. I gave her my strong recommendations and encouragement, and I supported her to the best of my abilities.
She's your boss. I mean, you serve your.
And John, I stand by my record. I faithfully served my boss. I didn't undermine her, and I didn't subvert her at different times. I faithfully supported her and tried to make her as successful as humanly possible. At the end of the day, her position was that she wanted me out of the way because she believed that I was not being the assistance and help that she was actually receiving. It was an odd paradigm. We can go into that a little bit more in detail later. But to make a long story short,
is this Christy Noem?
That's correct.
Oh, you have my endorsement then.
John, let me say this one. Let me say one thing very clearly when it comes to the politics. None of you are new to this. You know this. I voted for President Trump. He's the man of the hour. He's not perfect, but he's absolutely the man that we needed, and he led a coalition like no other. Unfortunately, as everyone knows, politics is the land of grifters. And I wish I could say that every political appointee that we bring in every Republican administration is good. The fact is, it's not true. There are people that mooch off the Trump brand and that grift off the Trump element time and time again. And Democrats do it, Republicans do it. It doesn't matter what administration's in place. So I wish I could say that every political appointee that comes into a new administration is perfectly, in line with the president. That is not the case. That is not the case.
That's a brand of honor. If she fired you.
So here's my question, Kim, and it's very simple. And I don't have a position here in any way. But my position is, you were working for Christy Noem. You took that position. You were an appointee. She was confirmed by the U.S. Senate. She was the secretary of DHS, like her or not. You took the position knowing that she was going to be your boss, and then you didn't agree with some of the things she wanted to do. You had a disagreement. Normally, in that circumstance, if you disagree with your superior, you simply resign and say, this isn't for me. I'm going to go back in the private sector. Yet it became a public spectacle, and I'm trying to figure out why you just didn't say, you know what, I don't agree with some of this stuff, so I'm just going to quietly go back to the private sector, and that's that. Then we wouldn't even be talking about this.
Well, John, when your character is being attacked, when you have an operative like Corey Lewandowski calling for you to be publicly polygraphed and then releasing data to the media, when you have an assailment of your character and of your service to this country to the highest degree, I'll be honest, I have one recourse for that, and that's to tell people to go pound sand. Mm-hmm. I faithfully served my boss. I faithfully served the secretary. I stand by it. Yes, we had disagreements. Yes, I was willing to enforce the things that she wanted. I can tell you without a doubt, that's why Tom Homan came to my defense. I had key people, key generals working for the administration publicly coming to my defense, indicating that I was a solid Trump supporter and that we were trying to work to achieve the agenda of the narrative. The main disagreement was that I advised the secretary stop talking about abolishing FEMA. The president's not on that talking point anymore. Legislatively, there's all kinds of different recourses that have to be pursued to do it. Plus, to be honest, there's radical reform that's necessary. But we have to go through the right mechanics to convince Congress to approve the changes that we want to make. The president's not a king. He doesn't have unilateral authority on certain activities. So we brought forward meaningful reform. The FEMA Review Council that just finished like 80% of what the FEMA Review Council had talked about for recommendations of the president, we were doing in March. And so the point is, I faithfully served the secretary. At the end of the day, it became an extremely unprofessional and caustic environment. I was asked to resign. I was asked to step down. I was more than willing to, but when your character's being attacked and when you're made to be given a lie detector test and then information like that is being leaked to the media, John, it's not a perfect scenario. It was not a good environment. And yes, I made tons of mistakes, John. I'm not perfect. I will admit that to anyone. I'm sure I will make mistakes tomorrow. If given the honor to be the RPV chairman, I'm sure I'll make mistakes there too. The point is we have to accept full responsibility. I take full responsibility for my actions, just as we need the RPV to take full responsibility for the fact that they were completely delinquent in this last election. There were systematic problems that were not addressed, and we could have moved the ball forward. We need radical accountability and true leadership.
And I'm watching the clock, John. And I know we're getting close to the 10:30.
Yeah, we're gonna extend another half hour because I got to get on. I got to get on Mike Clancy.
Cam,
go ahead.
Do you look at the mission ahead, and probably the number one obstacle that we face or challenge that we face, Democrats by April, we think, are going to try to redistrict Virginia's congressional delegation and annihilate Jen Kiggins and Rob Whitman and Morgan Griffith. And I mean, all these great Republicans who are doing a good job representing their constituency. Assuming you, or out of the four of you, one of you will be the chair by February, I think. What's the immediate plan with that short window of action that's available to prevent the Democrats from being victorious here? What do you do?
We engage in the largest media outreach that the RPV has ever seen. The largest matter of engagement to convince committees, give talking points, narratives, but we do it through media. We do it through news. We do it through social. We do it through mailers. I mean, we have to fundraise like we never have before. And that's true. That's going to be a difficult issue. I raised $250,000 on my campaign alone, but helped PACs raise another $1.5 million. We can do this. The RPV does have good bones there. We just need strong leadership to show a business case that's worthy of investment. I don't blame people for not giving to the RPV because in their interest, it was better to invest in Glenn Youngkin than it was to invest in the RPV because at least he won. At least he had a victory under his belt. But we need to reframe that paradigm, show relevance of the Republican movement, and engage in what I see as the largest mass media messaging campaign that the RPV has ever engaged in. We need to drive up energy, and there are federal resources that are already being accumulated to assist and do this. The RPV needs to be a strong partner and to draw that firm tent of we stand for all Virginians, and we need to make it clear to Virginians that this is an existential threat. If we don't get out and vote this April or whenever this actual special election occurs, we may never see a same Virginia for 30, 40, 50 years. We may completely lose this state in perpetuity. I don't want to see that happen. So, John.
Cameron, let me ask this. It's a follow-up on Mr. Reed. I think he's focused on what the General Assembly is going to do in January and February. And as chairman, what would you do? And I'm waiting to hear something about your legal assault in the Virginia Supreme Court on what is clearly a violation of the Virginia State Constitution. Correct. Do you have I think that's where Mr. Reed was going, a plan in place to attack that?
Absolutely. So you have to do both at the same time, walk and chew gum. Number one, you've got the legal fights. I think actually if this goes to the Supreme Court, we got about a 60% chance of defeating the referendum of what they're trying to institute, not to stop it, but to delay it. So what will happen is if we can win at the Supreme Court level, I agree with you. We have to fight the legal fight. We have to challenge in court. That's already ongoing, of which there's also other kind of, agreement petitions that have been filed, friendly amendments, friendly petitions that have been filed in support of what the Republican cause advances here. It's got to go up to the Supreme Court, in my humble opinion. I think we have a good chance of winning at the Supreme Court, better than loss. But having said that, we can't rely only on the Supreme Court. So that's why also messaging to voters so that they understand if this ballot referendum does come through, we need to convince Virginians that we've already voted for this and that now the Democratic Party is suspending democracy for the sake of engaging in unlawful activity to then supposedly save democracy. You can't, like, the cognitive dissonance is just astonishing here. So while we engage in the legal fight, of which we may not broadcast as much of that, on the second topic, we also need to educate voters of what's coming. So we need to do both, Joe.
One last point on that legal fight. There's two former Democratic state senators that have come out and publicly said that this referendum that is going to be voted on in January is wrong. Two Democrats.
Yeah, but they're going to vote for it anyway. that's
And nobody,
they're going to vote for it anyway.
Here's the point. Nobody on that legal team has reached out to former
That's right.
Senators Peterson or Morrissey to say, hey, can you give us an affidavit? Can you do this?
That's because you guys got beat in primaries and they kicked you to the curb. Joe, we got to go. I'm going to get Mike Clancy on next. Cameron, people want to follow you. By the way, Cameron, thanks for being here. Great segment. Thank you for your candor and your forthrightness on some tough questions. Really appreciate that. Appreciate your coming. What people want to follow your campaign for chairman, reach out to you, Cameron Hamilton. Where do they go?
They go, so Cameron at CameronHamilton.com. Most of my engagement right now is with the SEC directly, but follow me on social, Cameron VA or Cameron Hamilton VA on Facebook. But thank you, John, for having me. It's an honor, my friend. Looking forward to bringing on some good change.
All right, Cameron. Thank you. Thank you.